district. The draft that plan review looked at on Friday, the 12th, was initially 100 feet. We had the discussion at plan review about how many potential parcels that eliminated. The concern was, I think it was East 21st Street. We reduced that down to 40 feet, so all of those parcels could be considered because we were looking at the width of the right-of-way. From the standpoint of looking at this, differentiating it from a pharmacy, we're not differentiating this based on the fact that it's cannabis. We're potentially differentiating because of potential traffic generation.
I would disagree with you that pharmacies create a lot of traffic too.
Yes, sir, they do.
And I still don't remember the 100-foot. Maybe y'all do, but the only thing I heard came back was a 40-foot. And I disagree with that.
Yes, sir.
No, just for clarification, sorry, Tom, just for clarification, it's 100, well, right now, as the text reads is what you have in our packet, it's 40 feet, not from the building, but 40 feet from the property line, correct?
That's
Now,
correct.
setback is, I don't know if that's what David's referring to. What's a building setback off the back line, 20 feet?
Building set line, back lines for B4 is 40 foot from front, 20 foot from rear, 7 foot from side. And from the standpoint of differentiating, not making a distinction of this because it's cannabis, making a distinction because there's only one permitted location. With other uses, whether it's a vape shop, a pharmacy, you've got multiple options within Christian County. With this particular use and the unknown factor, and we don't know, but you're going to have potentially one, so you're going to have one location countywide drawing from multiple counties. That's a difference from the standpoint of contemplating that setback, but obviously call of the commission on what type, if any, setback you want.
Now, these cannabis, I've received numerous phone calls on a daily basis from investors looking for property, okay? And they can just as easily go out into the county themselves and park their business in the county with none of these restrictions whatsoever. And so I think Tom makes some good points, as we don't know how much traffic these things are going to contribute to the overall current traffic to a particular area. But in discussion and plan review, we did bring up B2 zoning and if there was B2 zoning along a 4-lane highway, I think that would be considered. But the only B4 zoning, I think, or the only zoning that we have on a 4-lane highway, more or less, for heavy arterial traffic is B4, correct, Tom?
With possibly one exception, but B2 is primarily Indian Hills. We've got it on Canton Pike. We've got B2 on Powell Lane. So as a general rule, yes, that's correct.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions for Tom?
Let me jump in here. Let me address first the signage, Jim. It's my understanding, or at least it has been, and I'll stand corrected, that the signage requirement specifically for this particular business is consistent with what we have already discussed in plan review many months ago when we were talking about the signage revisions for the ordinance for the city of Hopkinsville that we would love to have completed, but we've gotten bogged down. We're 10 months now of initiating zoning.
And solar.
And solar, yes, and downtown. You're correct. You're spot on, Ben. So am I correct with that, Tom? This particular, and that would be paragraph, oh gosh, where was that?
E3.
It's E3 on page
E3, yes.
3, top of the page.
That's consistent for what we've already preliminarily discussed and approved at plan review for the upcoming, soon to be released in my lifetime.
Hopefully, yes, sir.
Recommended zoning ordinance. So is that correct?
That's correct. When
That's
we
what I
were
thought.
discuss signage with
Yeah.
50 foot was,
All right.
was what we were talking about.
Now, next, let me address the setbacks. I'm going to agree with Ben here in my recollection. David, we already had a 20-footer, so the question was whether we were going to extend it 1 foot further. And I do recall the 100, even though I came in late. I walked in about, what?
Started at 100.
Yeah, I walked in about maybe a quarter of the way through this. I was late. And we really elected 40% as a compromise. It was not a unanimous decision at all. In fact, I see Jim, were you at that plan review?
I was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm counting noses and I see 6 of us that were plan review and 2 that were not. As I stated during plan review, I have a hard time seeing a difference, David, and you and I agree on this, on a pharmacy. And the center here that is going to be, if Hopkinsville is chosen, a regional site for a marijuana dispensary, and I say medical marijuana, under the rules and regulations and the statutes that have now been adopted in Kentucky. But after discussion, we, at least it was my view, more listening than anything else, that downtown was not suited for this type of operation. It became very evident to me anyway. So that took us back to the B4 and adding the additional 20 feet to the rear is basically what we're talking about.
40.
Well, we already had the 20.
It's not a setback, it's a
Not a
distance.
setback.
It's
The
a
distance, I'm
distance
sorry, the
Property
separation.
line
distance,
to property
the distance.
line.
I had a hard time then, and I still have a hard time differentiating, but again, between a pharmacy and this particular business. And we left it open, I think, frankly, to the full commission without it necessarily a recommendation. Is that y'all's recollection as well, to put it back to the full commission?
I thought we did.
I agreed with David on the.
It was a recommendation.
Yeah.
Was it a recommendation? Yeah, I guess it was, but it was a very narrow recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
s-
Ma'am.
when he's done. In my mind, at least, this has nothing to do with whether or not this is cannabis or they're selling anything. This is about traffic generation. And if we are going to be a regional destination for any type of service, we need to make sure that we are planning appropriately for the influx of people that are going to come and take advantage of that service. So it just makes sense in my mind to have a little bit of a buffer between a residential property and a business, whatever nature it may be, that's going to generate that sort of traffic, potentially.
I have a family member that just came back from Boulder, Colorado, and went through a dispensary and a grow house all into one at a processing. And they were in an industrial zone in an old warehouse. All of them are in the same building. And they got no issues at all. They got a fair amount of traffic, but it's not that much. I mean, it's not overwhelming.
Well, the big issue is you don't know, it's an unknown. We can assume that there's going to be a large amount of traffic. And there very well may be, but we don't know if there's not, we don't know if, we have no zoning text regarding this. We need to get something that way. There's some guardrails here ahead of, this is no difference than, in my opinion, than the solar ordinance that it's along those same lines. We didn't have anything. We need something, okay? And so I think everybody has some strong opinions about this, but we just need a motion. So-
Well, the reality, Ben, is that whatever we do, the city council is going to have the last say.
Sure.
And they may elect to discard the recommendation. And really, it was my belief that everybody seemed to be on the same page with the exception of the distancing. is that pretty well the consensus of everyone who was at plan review? We
Well,
we were all on the same page.
40-foot was the only one that had a majority show of hands
Yes.
support.
Yes, everything else was
You might-
unanimous.
You went down from 100 feet to different distances. We talked about
Mhm.
50 foot of right of way. And then Tom suggested perhaps a 40-foot would open up a lot of property because you would still have, counting that roadway, would be a sufficient right of way distance between that potential use in a B4 and pre-existing abutting residential uses. So that was the distancing, measuring property line to property line, not setbacks, distancing. So this is the tailor-made close part of this for this body. If you are of the opinion that you don't need any distancing from a residential use in a B4, then you can eliminate that 40. If you think their sentiment is, on the other hand, you think that 40 is not enough. And I understand, David, your point with regards to how do you pick which use and which distancing. We are using within these boundaries that limited amount of discretion that the General Assembly has thus far given to local municipalities. You know, that's such a wide range. You can say no, you can opt out, referendum. What the city council tasked us with was coming back within the four corners of the legislation passed by the General Assembly and say the 1,000 feet is non-negotiable with regards to those other uses, schools, so forth. But the 40-foot in that discussion, in that committee meeting that day, was the only number that seemed to have sufficient support to come to this body with a full recommendation. But it's, again, your tailor-made close. And if the majority of this board is of the opinion that there should not be any distancing requirements with regards to adjoining residential uses in B4, then you task your staff to come back with a draft that eliminates that. If that's the sentiment, you can do that.
Well, I've heard argument it's because of traffic flow. What has the other 20 foot got to do with traffic? When
Well,
you're
there is no
moving it-
oth-
when you're
well,
moving it off of the property line 40, you're going to create a smaller lot.
Well, you eliminate 125 properties. That's what it is.
Correct.
You got 290 and you got 175. You know, you've got about 115, 125 properties that you eliminate that potentially, 125 potentially upset property owners. And they complain to their city councilman member that will change it anyway. So
The elimination of
thought
the
is just.
the elimination of the 40 feet, in essence, doubles the potential locations in B4.
Of one location.
One location, that's all you're gonna get.
Right, one location, you go from about 100 and, I believe the count was 170 plus to 290 plus. So
Okay,
it's
I had
about,
140 to 290, but it's 170 with the
I
40
believe-
feet in.
right, it was what I said on the email and sending out the maps. I
Mhm.
believe that's correct.
So it's a substantial
And we can check that number.
It's a substantial increase if you eliminate the 40
Right.
feet, property line to property line, as a distancing requirement within the B4.
That's correct. Where it made the difference is some of the lots which backed up to residentially zoned properties directly off of Fort Campbell Boulevard. And it was Sunnyvale, Elton Drive, Sylvian Terrace, Lindsay Drive, that area immediately behind the commercial where you've got residential properties which immediately abut. There were some properties that it did impact on North Main Street, going 41 north, Sanderson Drive area, Blooming Grove Road area. We did have residential structures, residential districts, so you did have some elimination of some properties there because of the 40-foot requirement.
So the 40 foot is not pulled out of the air. I mean, the rationale is checking the right of way distance. If it's buffered by, the idea would be if there's a 40 foot and it's a roadway between the residential in the B4 use, that accomplishes the buffer.
Right, and looking at the map, most of the properties that got eliminated or would be eliminated is because they directly abut a commercial lot. That's, I mean, even if it were a 10-foot, those would be still eliminated. The 40-foot was picked because the right-of-way separating some of the commercial property, that would account for the right-of-way, so those properties would be in for consideration. That's where the 40-foot came from.
Question, Tom, on this
Yes.
map that you provided, you said buffer 1,000-foot school property, on this blue, basically balloons on this map you've got. Does that include the daycares as well? Or are your daycares,
My
the
understanding,
buffer is, they're just not highlighted green, correct, on our maps that we have?
that's correct. The blue blobs that are on there are basically what we knew as sites, as well as what was listed on the state's website. There is a zoning tool at the cannabis, Department of Cannabis, et cetera, that lists those areas and shows that. And if I had my PowerPoint, I could show that to you. But that takes into consideration what the state has identified already. One of the blue areas that we've included on here, which probably will not be included for this consideration of permitting, is properties adjacent to the new school there off of Lovers Lane. We've included a blue dot there, or blue area, but technically that school is not in operation at the time of permitting. And the way the state statute says existing. So when we looked at the state mapping, that was not included on the mapping you have. We went ahead and included it to show you what the impact would be once operational.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions from Tom?
We're looking to vote in August, correct?
That's correct. There is no final action on any text amendment. We will obviously need a public hearing. You'll get public comments prior to making a final vote to recommend. What we would need tonight is authorization to advertise for a public hearing, and in advertising for a public hearing, we need to have draft text available for the public to review. So any changes we need to make to that draft text, probably we need to do that tonight so folks would have an opportunity to comment on it.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay. Motion has been made by Ms. Killebrew,
I second it.
second by Mr. Leon Oldham. Any discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call on this real quick.
Jack Elliott,
Yes.
David Brain,
No.
Leon Oldham,
Yes.
Tim Fleming,
Yes.
Dan Thomas,
No,
Callie Killebrew,
very,
Yes.
very, I should say, still challenged, no.
Yes.
Wyndham Motley.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Still challenged.
Tom, on next item, other business.
Yes, sir. We do have one piece of other business to bring to you, and I believe you have information regarding a proposal for auditing services. As many of you know, the auditing company that we have used for several years is getting out of auditing for local governments. So back last month, we sent out a solicitation to several auditing firms, as well as noticed in the newspaper. We've received one proposal, and this is for Borland Benefield from, they are out of Birmingham, Alabama. However, they do have a footprint in Kentucky and do work for some local jurisdictions. The proposal is approximately $6,000 more than we currently pay. However, from what we have been told, the market for auditing services for municipal governments, local nonprofits, et cetera, is diminishing greatly. So what we are recommending is to authorize the chairman to execute a letter of intent with this group to engage their services to perform our audit for this upcoming year. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like a motion of the commission if possible to that effect.
Thank you, Tom.
I'd like to offer the motion that we go ahead and submit that to the auditors for soliciting their business.
Accepting that proposal.
Yes.
Okay. Motion has been made by Mr. Leon to accept the proposal as presented by Tom.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kylie Killebrew. Any discussion? All in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Tom, admin reports?
All right, sir. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm not going to go through all of this because this is about 3 pages in length. But as you review it, if you have any questions for me or staff, please let us know and we will make sure we get you an answer. Just to a couple of highlights, we are currently in discussions with the City of Pembroke and starting the process of their comprehensive plan update. It's been several years for the City of Pembroke. They've expressed an interest, so we're in the process of setting those wheels in motion. Subdivision regulations for the City of Oak Grove, we have basically completed that document short of formal review, public hearing, and comment. We do have an additional meeting we need to schedule with the Oak Grove City Attorney to go through it. We may have a public hearing on that next month. If not, I anticipate it will be September, but we're getting very close on that. Mr. Chairman, just a couple of highlights. That's all I have unless commissioners have questions of staff.
Okay. Any questions for Tom? All right.
And Mr. Chairman, hopefully next time our PowerPoints will work and our audio will be on the entire time so you can hear us.
Well, I know you spent a lot of time on that PowerPoint, so send it out to us by email. All right. That is it on the agenda.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Fleming,
Second.
second by Ms. Motley. All in favor of saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.